Hey guys, a couple of weeks ago, Katatonia put out a new record. It might surprise a lot of you, but I am a pretty big fan of their early catalog, early to mid catalog actually, stretching from their first releases all the way through, I would say, Viva Emptiness. I know it's not death metal. I normally talk about death metal here, but as someone that's always championed melody, this is a band that has always utilized it well up until about 2006. And they put out a record then that I didn't care for called the Great Cold Distance. And after that, the main songwriter, Anders, you might know him as Blackheim from his other acts like Diabolical Masquerade, he admitted to having writer's block, and that other band members had to contribute to the material afterwards. And it became kind of a vehicle to allow the singer Jonas to take over the songwriting. And I don't want to theorize as to his mindset, but it really seems that as he learned to sing after, say, Discouraged Ones leading into tonight's decision and onward, he developed a bit of a complex about him and kind of made the band all about him. And then we had the kind of unceremonious breakup of the two of them as Katatonia put out this new record, which has new guitar players. I don't really even know who's in the band now. I gave it a listen, and I actually think that it's one of the more melodically striking records they've had probably since maybe 2006's The Great Cold Distance. And it's still pretty minimal. It's still trying to be like an ethereal, more abstract, but still very melancholy record. But what you see the band has done since the mid 2000s is they've applied as a bit of a crutch for less melodically striking passages. They decided to get a little bit more jagged in their rhythms. They by having a little bit more of a bizarre rhythm to catch you off guard, you can kind of get away with not having something that's actually melodically centered. And you'll see a lot of that with most American metal. As you know, for me, I've always viewed the melody as the backbone of the song. You need to have something that defines the song, which will then define its position in the album, which will then define the album, which will then define the artist. And they've kind of gone by the wayside and went for this more abstract ambient approach, which I know a lot of people are fans of. For me, when you have music that is that sparse and limited, I like the suspense that a nice gap in melodies can provide. But if you're saying nothing, and music is supposed to be a form of communication, you're supposed to be storytelling. If you're saying nothing in extended periods, you're essentially like breathing in my ear when I'm waiting for you to tell me the next part of the story. And that's not satisfactory for a lot of reasons. But they kind of embrace that. They let vocals take the lead role in the band, as opposed to a record like Tonight's Decision and the one that came after it, Last Fair Deal Gone Down, which I think is one of their best records, where both the vocals and the guitar work had an equal balance of importance to the record. After that, it became the Jonas vocal band, and they got more and more pop-oriented with their arrangements and took a lot less risks. A lot of the melodies in the older records, especially on like an EP like Sounds of Decay, leading into Brave Murder Day, all of that stuff, the melodies were, of course, bleak, morose, but still very unique, very, they added to the character of that band. No other band sounded like that except for October Tide, which had members of Katatonia, and now October Tide is equally as lost as Katatonia, but it's hard not to notice that when you run out of stuff to say, when you run out of ways to build a melody, the crutch is often going ahead and making the rhythms more syncopated because, unfortunately, especially for American audiences, once they found out you can do what Meshuggah's doing, it opened up a whole door to get past writing issues. Like if you can't if you can't create a melody that's all your own, at least anybody can make a bizarre rhythm. Literally anybody can. You can tap a bizarre rhythm on a desk. It doesn't make it yours. That's still not yours. You have to fill that space that the rhythm is providing the backbone of with melody. And Katatonia lost the plot on that a long time ago. And it's rumored that Anders overcame a little bit of the writer's block for some of the more recent records. I thought that there was a song or two on The Fall of Hearts that felt a little bit more like classic Katatonia, but it never came back in full, and it never came back audibly to me. But writer's block, I can't say. I guess the only thing that's ever been a block for me is my fucking schedule. I wish that I could just have time to sit down, but the idea of sitting down and not having anything to say and having to produce that should be the death knell of your band if you're the main songwriter. If you feel that pressure to make something and you're not artistically driven, why do you keep going? Well, because someone else in the band wanted to use the band as a vehicle to inflate his ego. Then you end up having a lot of modern records with less and less character as time went on. But there's some stuff going on in this new one, which I will admit I caught my ear. It made me want to listen to it more than once. And most of the other reviews of the record are disagreeing with me on that. But I'm definitely hearing more that shows character. Not quite the character they were known for displaying, but it still feels like them. It still feels morose, still feels melancholy. The unfortunate aspect of it is that it's going to be broadcasted weakness. I know this is a channel that champions metal, and when you champion metal, it's because you are championing power, and I love power. I love worshiping the idea of fucking strength and secretly wanting the underdog to just get fucking pummeled into submission. I love that. But as much as I love the tenets of what metal is, I'm not a conqueror. I'm a fucking day laborer with a fucking salary position. And I gotta admit, I kind of align more sometimes with your doomy, gothy metal ideals a little bit more than with your standard death metal, even though I love the idea of strength in a world that is rapidly championing weakness over strength. But this band does have a little bit more maturity to the melancholy they're displaying, even if Jonas is steering the ship. There are elements that feel less like it's someone that is just totally pining over a woman and more about the melancholy you have from the weight of existence. That's something that's has a lot more depth to it than your personal experience of what went wrong in your personal life. But if you're able to fully analyze the misery of the world, that's more of what some of what's going on in this record is developing. So there's both more and less depth in this new material than what was on the previous stuff, although I'm always going to want to reach for the earlier catalog for what was more guitar-driven music, which was more unique, melodically driven music. So I predict, as the band continues, we'll see if the new guitar players actually have any say in what's going to be written. But obviously, they know what audiences want to hear, and it's jagged, syncopated rhythms if you have nothing left to say. So expect more explorations on that. I'm not going to get my hopes up for a return to a melodically centered band, but it's the one escape they have now. So that's about all I have to say about the new Katatonia record. Thanks for listening.